What's going on, Broncos country? Welcome on into a live edition of the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here running through a couple of topics on today's live show. We have a signing to break down. We're going to talk about a potential trade in the NFL draft and some remarks from NFL executives who decided to remain anonymous about the Broncos offseason. So a lot of good content to get to during our live show today. Really appreciate everyone for tuning in. As always, I know not everyone is punctual. Plus, we're 1 or 2 minutes early today because I wanted to get this show on the road with the signing. So we'll spend the first few minutes letting everyone click on the notification and join our live show. But shout out your city for me in the chat. Let me know where you are tuning in from. It's always fun to see who the furthest viewer is and who wins like closest to the Bullseye Award, right? Who is just next door to Mile High Stadium. So get in the chat right now. Let me know where you are watching from. And do me a big favor, click that like button if you have not already. It does help bring a big signal boost to the stream we're doing right now to get more eyeballs on our channel. So I've got Kenneth in South Dakota. I'm just existing, saying stick with Omarion Hampton and not trade up for Ashton Jeanty. Keanu, great to see you tuning in from Hawaii. Where is everyone watching from? Let me know. I've got Jay watching from Minnesota. Michael is in Indianapolis, the crossroads of America. And Danny's in the chat watching from Baton Rouge. Let me know if you need bar recommendation. Danny, I'll take all the recs. I've been to New Orleans, which I'm going to in 2 days now, Thursday, for my bachelor party. I've been to New Orleans a couple of times, but I love a good local recommendation because when people ask me for one, I just feel so special, and I'm like, yeah, I'd love to help you out. So, Danny, send me your favorite spots. My favorite one, I call it the Pirate Bar. It's like at the end of Bourbon Street. It's like Lafayette's or something. That's a really cool spot. So, hopefully you've been there as well. Aiden, do you like Jordan James in the 6? Wow. I've never been asked point blank, hey, what do you think about this 6th-round draft target? Sure, it's the 6th round. I won't say no to anyone. Peyton is watching from North Carolina. Kaiden is in Tennessee. Boxcar is in Denver. I'm just existing in California. I've never even been to Denver. We got to get you out there then. So, as you guys shout out your city in the chat, would you be interested in trading up in round 1 of the NFL draft? I would say the motivation, but the reasoning behind today's video about potentially moving up in round 1 was I was talking about the Saints with Sean Payton, with our Saints host, Trace Gerard, and pointed out a fun fact that Sean Payton never traded back once in round 1 when he was in New Orleans. Only went one direction. So, Denver, reasonable to believe he will do the same. And that's where I think we could see a trade up for Jeanty. So I want to look at that. Ronald Putnam. Ronald, so good to see you. Thank you for tuning in Colorado Springs. We have New Mexico in the house. Beckham says yes, trade up 100%. Michael is saying no. C. Chang, the Broncos did sign a player. We're going to talk about that to begin our live show. So let's actually get our show on the road here. We have a mailbag in about 45 or so minutes, but get your questions in right now. Use hashtag Broncos or Super Chat. If you Super Chat, you skip the line, and we guarantee your question, your take, your idea gets on screen for everyone watching to see. So don't be right on cue. Ronald Putnam with a $5 Super Chat. I was just going to say, don't be afraid to send me your hottest take, and we'll break it down live for everyone watching to see. So we'll get that Super Chat on screen for you, Ronald, in just a moment. But if you're unable to Super Chat, not an issue. Just use hashtag Broncos. That way, producer Mustakis can find your Super Chat. Find your question, pull it, and put it on screen for everyone watching to see. Ronald, let's be aggressive and get Jeanty. There we go, Ronald. Welcome aboard. A little bit foreshadowing for my thoughts. But yeah, I feel like this would be in line with Sean Payton's draft history and for where Denver is right now as a team. They're coming off a 7-seed playoff appearance, and the biggest weakness, I think, on that team was the lack of a run game. So if it means you got to spend a little bit more to get the number 1 guy, do it, right? Don't put yourself in economy. Splurge a little bit. Get the exit row. Get the number 1 guy. Ronald, love to see it. So coming up, we've got a signing, which happened after we kind of put together the blueprint for today's show. So we'll sneak that in before we look at some trade ideas, NFL execs talking about all 32 teams and their thoughts on other teams and what they had to say for Denver, and then that mailbag like I just mentioned. So let's jump into the signing because it's not a household name, but the more research I did on this player, the more I became impressed with the signing. So I'll elaborate that during our breakdown of this. I am ready to roll if Moose is, but the audience is not ready. We have 14 likes. That's kind of piss poor. I'm not going to lie. Can we get to 20 likes? 6 more people. Hit that thumbs up button. Help grow this channel so we can get more eyeballs here and we can get more content out to you all. So if you have not yet, like the video. C-Chang, 16 more days till draft day. I'm so pumped. I love the NFL draft. It is my number one sports event that doesn't actually involve a game being played. Right? I'm trying to think, like, what else kind of, there's the All-Star games, which does involve being a game being played, but not traditionally. It might rival, like, some other events where games are being played. That's how much I love the NFL draft.
I'm trying to think of any other non-game sporting events
Let's pull back on the non-games being played and just days in the sports calendar. Right? Like opening day, first weekend of March Madness. Those kind of like calendar events. It's up there for me. I'm not going to lie. That's a little delusional, but it's very high up there for me. I think I look forward to the draft more than the Super Bowl. If you're not playing in it.
Good point.
Right? It's like it's fun, but at the same time, the build up for the day is not like, oh, I'm so pumped for the Soupy tonight. You're just like, I can't wait to have some food and watch it. Draft, you feel like you're in the game now.
I would agree with that, and also opening week of the NFL season is just like, it's just wonderful.
It's the best. We got to 28 likes, so we can start today's first segment, which is all about a Broncos signing that happened not even 60 minutes ago. Moose, let's tell them all about it. The Broncos have made a signing that the more research I do, the more I'm impressed I am for a player that I had never heard of before, which is Panthers safety or former Panthers safety, Sam Franklin. So a little background on him, and then we'll talk about what his role is on this defense. Spoiler, it's special teams, which may not feel like a big needle mover to you, but I think it's going to be a great influence on that third of the field. He was a UDFA coming out of Temple. He made the 53-man roster as a rookie, which is very rare for a UDFA. He played 5 seasons in Carolina. He was a team captain in 2024. He unfortunately missed some time with a foot injury suffered before the season began, so that took a dip into his production. He's had some flashes on defense. Here are his career stats through 5 seasons. He's got a 99-yard pick six from 2023, so a decent highlight reel, him and Pat Surtain and that very rare company of 99-yard returns, 5 pass breakups, 3 tackles for loss. He also shows a lot of emotion. When I was learning about Sam Franklin, I saw a video of him kind of jawing off with a Buccaneers player after a Panthers-Bucs game in 2024. So I like that fiery tenacity. Let's go. But at the end of the day, Denver is finding a special teams ace, which is where I might lose some of the casuals where they go, who cares about that? But the diehards stick around because this has, I think, some really good value. You look at his special team snaps throughout his 5-year career, and he has been a consistent force. And Darren Rizzi, who comes over from New Orleans, is starting to put together his cornerstone pieces on special teams that last year, I wouldn't say it was bad as a unit. It had one awful moment, we can all agree, in Kansas City. But outside of that, it was an okay unit. And okay units don't really scream, we need a massive change. However, both the special teams coordinator and the assistant head coach / special teams coach are gone from last year. So there's a decent overhaul being done in this department. And Darren Rizzi continues to bring in bodies that can fill what he wants to accomplish there. So we're looking at a 1-year contract that's probably going to be around 3 to 4-ish million. It's not going to be a huge investment for a team captain in Carolina, a special team czar, and a guy that's got some emotion when talking about rival teams. If week 1 rolls around and it's Denver, Kansas City, and Sam Franklin's out there and he's talking smack to Patrick Mahomes, tell me he's not going to be the most popular man in Denver the very next morning. So I like this signing. It's a name that you probably hadn't heard of before, but the more I did research on, the more I liked when I came to this move. So it gets a thumbs up from me. I feel like I am Chuck Noll in Dodgeball when Peter LaFleur is looking for all 3 thumbs up. So it gets my seal of approval when it comes to this free agent signing. Now, I do want to look at the trickle-down effect here because P.J. Locke might be in a little bit of hot water. I don't know if he is now a guaranteed lock, no pun intended, to make the 53-man roster. Can we revisit the safety department for a second here? There's 2 ways of looking at this. One, this signing shows zero faith in the backup safeties they have who were there for special teams. Delaire and Turner Yell, J.L. Skinner, Devon Key, right? Those are guys that make the roster for being special teams contributors. Turner Yell was a good special teamer 2 years ago, missed all of 2024 recovering from a torn ACL. So the safety room might look like Brandon Jones, Talanoa Hufanga, tossing Sam Franklin, and then P.J. Locke versus everyone else. That's what I think it's shaping up to be. We've got a long ways to go until roster cutdown day at the end of August, and inevitably, unfortunately, injuries do happen, and that usually throws a wrench into things. But Locke, I'm going to put on the hot seat a little bit because the way he played last year, well, the way Denver looked at it was we got to sign Hufanga to a $45 million contract to keep him off the field. Actions speak louder than words. And now they make a second safety addition. So just something to keep your eye on. Now, we're going to talk about the defense in more detail in just a moment here. But I told you guys when free agency started, when signings happen, we're going to get a video out to you. So don't miss any more Broncos news than you have to by subscribing to the channel. That way you can stay locked in on your favorite team all year long. Now, another signing happened today I want to touch on. Lucas Kroll, he just officially signed pen to paper to the contract. This is not new information, though. So Kroll comes back. It was an exclusive rights free agent signing. What that means is there's unrestricted free agents, which is about let's say 85% of free agents. And then there's restricted free agents and exclusive rights free agents. So unrestricted is the most common one. It's just you can sign anywhere you like. You're unrestricted. Restricted is you can only negotiate with your team initially, and if they don't want to sign you, then you can go talk to other teams. And if another team makes an offer to you, your team can match that offer. Exclusive rights free agent is, hey, here's your offer, take it, or you can't play in the NFL. That's really it. So Lucas Kroll had 2 options: be a Walmart greeter or play for the Broncos. Not a bad decision. Now, I've got more to get to on today's show, so don't go anywhere. But quick shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. So if you want to take the more on a couple of Nuggets players, because I don't know if you saw this, they've been in the news today, or the less, whatever it may be, just hang out over at Prize Picks. It's a great way to stay a little bit more engaged in games that you may not have a huge interest in. Now, I put all this information for you guys in the comment section, but download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. All that information in the comments and description. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. So this is the safety. This is the second safety signing we have seen so far in free agency. The first one and the most notable one, the 2022 All-Pro from the 49ers, Talanoa Hufanga. Big fan of this signing. Unfortunately, a torn ACL kind of derailed what would have been back-to-back all-pro seasons. You can see in 2023, through 10 games, he had 3 interceptions, so he was on pace for yet another tremendous year. Tears that ACL, probably lingered a little bit into 2024. He missed time due to other injuries this past season. Altogether, the Niners let him walk, played just 17 games combined over 2 seasons. So I can somewhat understand where San Francisco's coming from, but I like this signing. I think this is going to be a fantastic signing while we just kind of talk about the safety room in general. And the Broncos defense, it was great last year. I love the way John Gruden put it. It was the anonymous crush. And now it's starting to become a little bit less anonymous when you get guys like Hufanga with their accolades already in their very young career. So we might have to workshop a new nickname. I'll kind of open it up to the floor here if anyone's got some suggestions. If the Broncos were the anonymous crush last year, what are they this year? I got nothing right now, but I'm going to work on it. So just to do a quick overview of the entire defense from front to back. The front three, your defensive line, you've got 2 great pass rushers in Zach Allen and John Franklin Myers. DJ Jones is going to be there to stop the run. Malcolm Roach will be a great rotational piece. A couple of question marks beyond that. I mean, there's other guys, they're backup, so the bar isn't supposed to be super high, but I would be interested in adding a defensive tackle earlier in this draft, just given that Allen and Franklin Myers going into the final stages of their contract. Jones, 30 years old, could be a good time to replenish on the D-line. Linebackers now, you added Dre Greenlaw. He's going to line up with Alex Singleton, who's coming off that torn ACL, and then Cooper and Bonito, 2 players coming off double-digit sack seasons, just wreaking havoc off the edge. And when they get a breather, it's not much better for the opposing offensive line. How about Jonah Ellis, 5 sacks as a rookie? How about DeAndre Tillman, a guy who came out of the UFL and went to Indiana University in Pennsylvania, whatever it's called. Well, he had 4 sacks against the Bucs. So even when Tillman and Bonito are catching their breath, they still have wave after wave after wave of pass rushers coming for you. And then in the secondary, we can just kind of skip over Pat Surtain because we all know what he's capable of. He's the best player in football at his position, the reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year, Jaquan McMillan. The guy is just, I don't want to say this in a mean way, he's kind of a rat, right? From the offensive perspective, he's an absolute headache. He's going to be all over you. He's going to get under your skin. He's going to create turnovers. He's a rat. He's kind of like Brad Marchand, if anyone here is a hockey fan as well. Like, he is just someone that no one wants to deal with for 60 minutes. Oh, and Riley Moss, for anyone that's kind of fading him, we saw how valuable he was when he went down at the end of the season and they rushed him back from injury because they did not want to live life without him longer than they had to. And then the safety department here. Brandon Jones coming into year 2 of a 3-year deal he signed from Miami. Hufanga entering that first season with the Broncos. Super excited for what these 2 players can bring to the table. Jones last year was sneaky good. I mean, he had some really nice plays and takeaways and some impactful moments. And we saw what Hufanga can do when healthy. And sure, there's a little bit of crossing fingers and toes of when healthy, but I'm choosing to believe 2 years removed from that torn ACL, we're going to get a lot more of the 2022 Talanoa versus the 2023-2024 injury-prone guy. So how would you grade Denver's defense altogether? A, B, C, D, or F? I'm going to give you my grade in 5 seconds. Let's see if you and I had the same grade. A little test here. Ready? You can do pluses and minuses too, by the way. 3, 2, 1. A minus. The only thing holding me back from it being a big, flat-out A is I just got to see Greenlaw and Hufanga stay healthy. If both those guys play 100% of snaps the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, man, you've got a brand new, great run stopper who's also awesome in coverage as well in Greenlaw. And then Hufanga, who's just going to be hopefully your next Justin Simmons when it comes to creating takeaways. So I'll give it an A minus. It's just contingent on those 2 guys staying healthy. So that's going to do it for us on today's episode. Hope you enjoyed our breakdown of the Sam Franklin signing and what the defense looks like now. We're going to get you guys on out of here. Before you leave, do me a big favor, though. Click that thumbs up button. All right. How would you grade that signing? Let me know. Over 100 people tuned in. Appreciate everyone for watching with us. Bulwark tuning in from the land down under, giving it an A. Mark says B equal. I like that. It's always B plus or B minus. I think B equal. I think equal means it's as B as it gets, right? Desire best A minus. Danny says B plus. Joe says A. Mark says B plus. Mohammed says A. Pineapple says B. I haven't seen anything lower than a B right now. So very excited for what this defense is capable of in 2025. Mailbag coming up in a little bit, so start getting those questions in. Use hashtag Broncos, or you can super chat and we throw it on screen for everyone watching to see, like we did with Ronald Putnam. So if you have something you are dying to ask and you don't want to see if Moose picks your question or doesn't pick your question, super chat, and all 109 beautiful viewers are going to see whatever you have to say. Okay, should we move into our originally scheduled first segment for today's live show, but now our second segment with that signing kind of out of the way here? I'm excited for this segment and the signing, but the segment too, because it's got a little bit of creativity to it, but I think it's got more legs to it than even I want to give it credit for.
I was going to say, this upcoming segment, it's based in fact, so it might have creative elements, but you definitely did your homework on this one.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. All right, let's not dilly-dally. I missed the dilly-dilly. That was, I don't know why Bud Light went away from that. That was a much better ad campaign than the next one.
Pretty sure Dilly Dilly.
Easy, you just blew out everyone's eardrums.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm pretty sure Dilly Dilly, wasn't that like at the all-time high of Bud Light sales? Like I think that was like right then and there was when Bud Light was at its peak.
Okay, sorry if Moose is kind of cracking through a little bit. He's out here blowing eardrums. Okay, here we go. I'm ready when you are. On today's episode, I want to talk about Denver possibly trading up in the NFL draft. You see, 2 weeks ago, we did a video about the Broncos trading down, trading back. But I want to do the opposite today because history says this is far more likely than the Denver Broncos moving back from pick number 20. Fun fact, Sean Payton, when he was in New Orleans as the head coach, never traded back in the first round of the NFL draft. He was just a 1D fan. He only went one direction. He never thought about moving backwards. And George Payton, when he was kind of running the show by himself before Sean Payton got here, we saw how aggressive he was in the draft, right? Moving up and getting Quinn Miners, right? And making some moves in day 2 and day 3 of the draft. So combine the two Paytons, they love to wheel and deal. So I don't think it's that big of a stretch for Denver to possibly move up in this year's draft. Let's just stick with me for a moment because I know this is a little bit ambitious, but check out history with me because you know I love history. And if we go down memory lane with Sean Payton, he has been no stranger to moving up. In 2018, he jumped from 27 to 14 to get Marcus Davenport. He jumped 13 spots. That's a huge shift right there. The year before that, he jumped back into round 1 and gave up Brandon Cooks in the process to select Ryan Ramczyk, who would just be an all-pro tackle for them. A few years before that, with the Cardinals, went from 27 to 20 to get Brandon Cooks, ironically enough, who they ended up trading away to New England. Moving on here, what about in 2011 with the Patriots? Going from 56 back into round 1 to get Mark Engram. This was the draft where they got Cam Jordan, and reports were they were torn on Jordan or Engram, and they had that taco commercial, I think it's El Paso Shells. Like, why not both? Why don't we get both players? So they gave up a future first and their second rounder for Mark Engram. I'd say they won this running back trade right there. So if you're ever like, hey, I'd rather stay put and get a running back later and have more picks, would you rather have Mark Engram for this 10-year career or Shane Vereen? In 2008, towards the beginning of his time in the Big Easy, he went from 10 to 7. He made a lot of deals with the Patriots, by the way. to get Cedric Ellis, and New England got Gerard Mayo and a third-round draft pick. So there is a long history of Sean Payton moving up in the NFL draft. And I don't think it is that preposterous to think he could do it again this year, especially when you take into account that the general consensus for the 2025 NFL draft is it is light on first-round grades. What does that mean? 32 guys are going to go in round 1. Does not mean 32 players are looked at as, hey, that's a first-round grade. That's a first-round type of player. No, it means, well, we had to pick someone, so this guy's going to be looked at as a first-round quality player, but we have a second-round grade on him. This year's class, usually, I'll back up a minute here, there's about 20 first-round grades, which is why you see way more trades happen from 21 to 32 than 1 to 19. Because 1 to 19, they kind of want to stay put and get someone who's really a first-round player. Then you see 21 to 32 go, man, these are all second-round grades. If someone wants to give us a good offer, we'll happily bow out of this round, get an extra second-round pick. And sure, it might look like we didn't get a first-round player, but really, we get 2 second-rounders instead of just 1 second-round player. Do you follow? This year's draft, it's more like 15 first-round grades. So if you want a quality kind of blue-chip player for the future, 20 likely requires a move up. And Sean Payton has always been one thing when it comes to his offseason and draft persona. Aggressive. Is he someone just to sit back on his hands and go, I hope we get the guy? No. He wants his man, he's going to get him. I mean, he took a bit of a victory lap after selecting Bo Nix, saying, no one here, first off, he talked about having to put on this charade to throw everyone off, but also he was not afraid to shy away with, that's our guy, and we were not going to mess around, and we believe in him, and we took him in round 1 when people like myself said, hey, that's more of a round 2 quarterback. So kudos to Payton. He stood by his guns, and I could see him doing that again this year. So before we look at what a trade-up could look like and for who, wink, wink, Ashton Jeanty, would you be interested? Right now, let me get your thoughts on this, and you can revisit it by the end of the episode and see if your mind changes or if I change your mind. For me, it's a why for yes. I am interested in trading up if I am the Broncos because there is a certain player that I think is worth the trade. And when we look at the NFL draft order, you're not going from 20 to the top 5 in my eyes. That's just too big of a jump. It would require multiple future first-round draft picks. You're likely not making a deal with the Raiders. It's not impossible. Interdivision trades in the draft have happened, just not likely. The Jets at 7, I could see that, but I want to zero in on more of that 8 to 10 range, where at 8 you had the Carolina Panthers, at 9 you have the New Orleans Saints, and at 10 you have the Chicago Bears. So let's kind of focus in on those 3 teams, because I think that might be the sweet spot for trading up to get the guy that you really want to give up future picks for and have it be worth it. Because, sure, trading from 20 to 15 might seem manageable and easier to do, but is the guy you want going to be there at 15? He could be long gone by then. So the player that I'm hinting at and not doing a very good job of hiding is Ashton Jeanty. Now, a lot of mock drafts have had Jeanty going to the Raiders. However, there's been some buzz recently that Michigan cornerback Will Johnson could be the play for Vegas at pick number 6. So if Jeanty were to slip past the Raiders, which if you're Las Vegas, you got to ask yourself, who, by the way, if you don't have bad in Denver when it came to rushing the ball, it was worse in Vegas the last 2 years. So I understand the reasoning behind Jeanty, but you got to ask yourself, hey, what's better for this team? A round 1 offensive lineman and then a round 2 running back, or the reverse? You can get Jeanty, but if he has no line, he's not going anywhere. It might be in their best interest, not, like jersey sales interest, but in the team's best interest to reinforce that offensive line and then go get one of the best running backs available in round 2 of the draft. So I could see Jeanty slipping past Vegas. I'm not going to say it's a guarantee, but if he were to, that is when Sean Payton picks up the phone. And we'll look at what a trade up could look like for the Boise State running back. First things first, I do have to give a shout out to our friends over at Game Time. Game Time is making getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. So if you want to go to a Rockies game, a Nuggets game, or an Avs game, check out Game Time because they have so many cool features like Game Time Picks, which makes last-minute tickets buying easier than ever by quickly highlighting the best deals in the stadium. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. I put all that information for you all in the comments and description of today's video. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So here's my idea. Let's say Jeanty gets past Vegas at 6. The Jets have Breece Hall. They might just play it safe and take an offensive lineman, which they really need help at, or Tyler Warren. But at 8, I could see the Carolina Panthers not being desperate to trade the pick, but being very receptive. They gave up a lot to get Bryce Young, and they could see this as an opportunity to try and make up some of the lost draft capital to Chicago by moving back from pick number 8. So what about 20 up to 8, and the Panthers get a future first rounder? It probably requires a little bit more than just one future first. It might be a first and like a fourth. Could be a first and next year's third. But this is the framework of it. And I know it's steep, and I know it's a lot. But let me just kind of ask you this question. Would you rather have Ashton Jeanty, or just going to work on the fly here, let's just look at 2 Broncos draft picks at 20-ish. Like, would you rather have Jeanty or Noah Fant and Paxton Lynch? They were the 20th and 26th overall pick. That first next year could be pick 26 if Denver wins a playoff game, or in that neighborhood. So, Jeanty or Fant and Paxton Lynch. I know that first-round picks are looked at as guarantees. They're not. It's a lottery ticket. It gives you better odds than round 7, but it's still a bit of a crapshoot. And Jeanty, to me, is as clear and pure as they come for a prospect. I mean, he's 5'9", 215 pounds, so a little bit on the smaller-ish end. But if you've seen him play just one game, you know he plays like the size of Derrick Henry. I mean, that's the thing that jumps out to me the most. Look at Jeanty's rushing numbers from last year. 2,600 yards, averaging 7 yards a pop, 29 touchdowns. Okay? Receiving-wise, he didn't offer a ton, but why would they throw him the ball when they could just hand it off to him and get 7 yards a carry? So I think there's more to that part of his game than what the surface shows. But I don't think it's just the stats. Like, I don't think it's just, oh, he got all those numbers. No, I think it's what he's able to do when he gets to contact. And that is what I believe is going to make him such a special running back in the NFL. Because sure, in the Mountain West, may not be playing against the greatest defenses. Not a big knock against them, but people will have that knock against Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty led the country in rushing last year. He was first. You want to know who was second? It was Ashton Jeanty after contact. Think about that for a second. We're talking about a generational type running back who is better when the defender meets him in the hole for the first time, and he still puts together 1,900 yards, number 1 in the country in 2024, by a mile, and on average, more than any other running back as well by the carries. In fact, you want to see how this stacks up against running backs taken in the first round over the last half decade or so, Bijan Robinson had a really good year for Atlanta last season. He had 1,000 yards his last season for the Longhorns after contact. Jeanty had 900 more. Look at Jahmyr Gibbs. Look at Najee Harris. ETN. I put Javonte Williams up there for reference. Remember, he was a bruising back as well coming out of UNC. Jeanty, you know when you see those graphs, and it's sports graphs, and at least I'm the big idiot, and you're like, I don't know what the X and the Y axis really mean here. One of them always says efficiency, and like, I guess we got to take their word for it. All you know is you want to be in the top right-hand corner. Jeanty is not in the top right-hand corner. Genty's on a different graph in a different galaxy. That's how far and away he is from every other back, not just in this draft class, but a whole bunch of previous draft classes when it comes to some of the more advanced analytics. So yeah, if Carolina said, you know what, after missing out on a lot of draft picks and good ones the last few years because of the Bryce Young deal, we'll take an extra first for next season, and you can have pick number 8. It's a no-brainer. Seriously. If all goes well with Jeanty, you're picking later than 20 next year anyway. So would you rather have the 8th pick or the 20th and say the 25th? Give me 8 every day over 20 and 25. No question in my mind. So if you were on the fence 5 minutes ago when we started this portion of the show, hopefully you're on my side of the fence right now. Let me know. To revisit it, would you give up 2 first-round draft picks for pick number 8? I type A for accept, and I don't think twice about it. There's no hesitation. I'd be like what I would think I would be like in Deal or No Deal, how quickly I would go, no deal, every time the banker calls. That's how all over this idea I am. So, Ashton Jeanty, I hope you stay a Bronco from Boise State down to Denver. That will do it for us on today's episode. Ooh, let's do name a random Mountain West school. How about that? Name a random Mountain West school. I've got mine in mind. Counting down in 3, 2, 1. San Jose State. Very low-key Mountain West school. That's going to do it for this time. I will see everyone later. Come on, make it happen. Ty Man, why would you bring up the Gators? If anyone here is in like a relationship and your significant other brings you to meet her friend and that friend's significant other, the two guys kind of have to make like not awkward small talk, but like, all right, I guess we're gonna be friends for the night since we're double dating or whatever it is. So over New Year's, my fiance's best friend from college came to visit, and she brought her fiance, and I had met him just once before briefly. So I was like, all right, I guess we're gonna be buddies for the next 2 or 3 days. And I learned he was a Florida fan, and as a Tennessee fan, I was like, well, this is not off to a very good start. But I'll give him credit. In December, he was like, people are sleeping on the Gators. They are a very good team. And Tennessee at the time was number 1. And I was like, yeah, but they're not better than Tennessee. They ended up dog walking my Volunteers like a week and a half later in Gainesville. And I almost texted him at halftime, looks like Florida really wasn't that good of a team after all, huh? And I was like, no, I'm going to wait till after the game. And I'm so glad I did.
Yeah, thank God you didn't.
Yeah. Weston PD, what would you make your NFL Broncos mock draft? I'm going to do a Broncos mock draft, I think, tomorrow. So I'll answer your question with a 15-minute answer during that next video we make on Wednesday. Okay, next up on the show, we have, is it mailbag time? No, it's not. The 4th segment is really throwing me off. We have one more segment and then the mailbag. Okay, but get your questions in for that mailbag still. I'm going to call out Rivera. I want Bulwark and Mark Baker to get a question in. You 3. Hashtag Broncos in the chat right now. Here we go. I came across an article from The Athletic which talked about what NFL execs had to say about every other team's offseason. And I thought you might be interested in what they had to say about your Broncos. So we're going to unpack that on today's show. It's got a lot of good, juicy kind of quotes and tidbits to it, so a lot to get to. But as always, I do want to get the audience involved. It's Chat Sports, not PD Sports. So shout out your city for me in the chat. We've grown a ton as a channel, and I just want to know where all of our beautiful viewers are watching. So shout out your city if you have not already in the comment section. Now, let us look at what some NFL execs had to say about the Broncos offseason. Quick reminder what they did. Some notable moves. They added Evan Engram, Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga. Not many tough departures. Backup Zach Wilson. I mean, now backup for the Cowboys, Javonte Williams. Rico Dowdle still unsigned? No, I think he signed somewhere. Cody Barton, Carolina. Okay, so maybe starter for Javonte. But I think we'd all agree Denver improved versus regressed based on the additions and the subtractions. In fact, I'd argue some of those subtractions were really additions by subtraction. So, in my opinion, Denver improved in free agency. But today's video is not really about my opinion. It's the NFL exec's opinion. And it's always fun to hear what some of the people working high up in the league have to say about other teams. So, we're going to look at that. Let's start by talking about an Evan Engram signing. So, he comes over after half a year in Jacksonville due to injuries, where he only put up 365 yards and 1 touchdown. But prior to that, the former first-round pick by the Giants put together some really good years in Duval, and it has caught the attention of one anonymous NFL exec who said this about Engram: they are really good players when healthy. I'll bet you Evan Engram catches at least 75 balls next year. He will have a big year because he can run and catch. Sean will make him the focal point of their offense on third downs. I don't know about you guys, but anytime I kind of read stuff like that, I go, that's going to fire me up a little bit, because it's always good to get confirmation from an outside source about something you already thought was good, and now it just got even better when you read that. By far, this is the biggest positional improvement the Broncos made, because the tight end bar from last year was historically low. They were just out there for cardio. I mean, immediately Engram, of course, slots in at tight end 1, and we'll see who else even makes the roster because of the way this room disappointed in 2024. I'm not just trying to be mean or pick on them, but, like, the numbers speak for themselves. Adam Trotman led the bunch with 188 yards. It's almost a miracle they even got to 5 touchdowns based on the way that unit started the season. And Bo Nix, I think, as a quarterback, he's not one who's constantly looking to just, like, fling it down the sideline. You know, that's more like a Michael Penix type of quarterback. He wants to kind of keep it a little bit closer to him. And that's where a tight end's supposed to be your best friend. So this is really going to take Bo Nix, I think, to another level. Now, who do you believe is going to have more touchdowns in 2025? Evan Engram, who, by the way, is wearing number 1, or Courtland Sutton? Let me know in the comment section below. Sutton comes off an 8-touchdown campaign. Let's see what Engram can do this year. Here's another quote from an NFL exec. All of this coming from an article in The Athletic. Sean is getting some of the guys that fit what he has had in the past. Does he go with the running back in the draft? So the answer to me is yes, right? They're not going to trot out Jaleel McLaughlin, Audric Estime, and Tyler Bidet as their top 3 backs. They have not taken a running back off the streets in free agency yet, and to me, that's almost more evidence of what they plan to do in the draft, because only an idiot would look at that room and think, yeah, it's all hunky-dory, good to go, send her on its way. No. It's Sean Payton. He's not an idiot. So they are going to go with the running back in the first 2 rounds of the draft. I bet on it with you. And who that could be, there's really 2 names that have my attention right now. In round 1, there's been a lot of buzz around UNC's Omarion Hampton as a potential running back target. In round 2, we can look at their stats as well. You've got Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. I think Johnson's going to be a phenomenal back at the next level. He's my RB2. Hampton's just behind him, and honestly, you put enough Hampton highlights in front of me, and I could flip-flop them that easily, but I think there is a lot to like between these 2 players. Now, there's a very real possibility that Hampton goes earlier in round 1 to, like, the Cowboys, and Johnson goes early in round 2 to a team like the Bears or the Browns, something like that. And if that happens, well, now Denver picking more in the middle of round 2 has to kind of move to plan D or E. And I've got 3 suggestions. So, Sean, George, I know you're watching. Write it down so you don't forget. Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee. He had 19, 20 touchdowns for the Vols a year ago. He was a finesse back at the goal line, 11 scores within 5 yards. But he also is not, you probably think, oh, he scored a bunch of goal line touchdowns. That means he's just like a bowling ball. No, he's got great long speed. He's elusive. He can make cuts on a dime. There's a lot to like for Sampson. I just feel that he's going into the draft at the wrong year because of how loaded this running back draft class is. Then you got Quinshawn Judkins and Travion Henderson from Ohio State. 2 excellent backs who bring a lot of like thunder and lightning combo together. And they're probably going to fall a little bit in the draft because the stats don't pop out a ton since they were in a split backfield. But I think that kind of paves the way for one of them having like an Alvin Kamara career arc. Remember, he was a 3rd-round pick to New Orleans with Sean Payton. And when he blossomed in New Orleans, everyone wondered, how did we not see this coming? Well, as a Tennessee fan and someone who was in Knoxville for Kamara's final season, I can tell you how. He was in a committee backfield with Jalen Hurd, who eventually, flamed out of the league after a brief time in San Francisco. And here are Henderson and Judkins, who were in a committee backfield. So there's a very real possibility that they get to the league, they put together monster numbers, and everyone's left wondering, how did we miss this? Well, it's because you just evaluate running backs because of their stats. And you can't evaluate college players purely based on production, right? There's so much that goes into it. What if you're a really good running back behind a horrible offensive line? What if you're a really good running back in a West Coast like air raid offense? You don't get the opportunities then. You don't get the touchdowns. You don't get the highlights. You don't get the buzz. And you fall a little bit. And it requires teams to do a little bit extra digging on you to realize, oh, you are good. So all 3 of those options right there, I think, are great options as well. Okay, we're going to look at the other quote in just a moment. But first things first, I do have to give a big special shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, Georgia. The app is really easy to use. All you do is create a lineup and then select more or less. So if you're looking for a fun way to pay for date night, for example, you throw on a Nuggets game, an Avs game, you pick more or less, and you go 2 for 3, 3 for 3, 3 for 4, whatever it might be, and all of a sudden dinner's paid for thanks to Prize Picks. That's the way I always looked at it. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. All of that information is in the comments and description of today's video. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Moving on. We got one more quote from an NFL exec, and I think I saved the best for last because this is I'm about to be the Kool-Aid man and run through a brick wall right here. Mike Sando had this. This is from The Athletic. Greenlaw fills the Jonathan Vilma role as quarterback of the defense. Hufanga becomes his Malcolm Jenkins. Engram becomes a version of Jimmy Graham. Incumbent receiver Cortland Sutton resembles Marquise Colston in some ways. Comparing quarterback Bo Nix to Drew Brees is unfair, but both are extensions of Peyton. Yeah, I think we'd all sign up for something like that, right? Where you can get that type of player from these recent signings. Greenlaw is arguably pound for pound my favorite one when you look at what they're paying him, how desperate the Niners were to retain him, flying to Dallas to his home and meeting him before free agency, trying to sway him back to return to San Francisco, him sticking with the Broncos, which shows a ton of faith and belief in the direction Denver is headed right now. Yeah, I'm Kool-Aid man. I'm running through a wall right there. Now, one of the comps that he made that really jumped out to me was the Jonathan Vilma one. A little background on Vilma. 2004 first-round pick out of Miami, played for the Jets, goes over to the Saints, plays there for an extended period of time, right? 6 seasons. He made a couple of Pro Bowls under Sean Payton. And when you look at this linebacker room, and really just not even linebacker room, let's say run-stopping room. How about that? Run-stopping unit. And you go back to everyone's last full healthy season, Greenlaw and Singleton, that would be in 2023. Jones and Roach would be in 2024. Yeah, I think that's a unit right there that can stuff the run, which became an issue down the stretch in 2024. I don't know if the job is complete 100%, but got a whole lot better when you get Singleton back from injury and you add Dre Greenlaw. Sure, you're rolling the dice on Greenlaw and Singleton to come back 100% or 95%, but I think that's worth the risk for the ceiling and the upside those two players have right there. To wrap up today's episode, how many wins for the 2025 Broncos? I've got my number in mind. I'll count down from 5. See if you and I say the same number. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 10. I'm going to go with 10. It's not a slight against Denver. I think it's more of a reflection of the NFL's tough. And the Broncos finishing third in the division will not give them too tough of a schedule. I mean, the opponent's already out, but I'm going to go with 10-7 again. And I know people are going to look at me and go, boo, you're being a hater. I mean, last year I picked them to go 9-8, finished 10-7, so not too far off. I'll go with 10 wins for the Broncos this year. That's going to do it for us on today's episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Do me a big favor before you leave. Like the video and subscribe if you have not already. And I'll see everyone later. Bulwark says 11. Rob says 12. Tyman says 11. Mark says 12. I'm just existing says 11. I am definitely on an island right now. Kenneth is a Gators fan. Get Kenneth out of here. 12 minimum for Mark. When you are in a division with Andy Reid and Jim Harbaugh, it won't be easy to just fall into 11 wins. Whereas if you were like if this team was in the AFC South, I'd pick them to win 10 games. I really would. If the only competition was the Texans, who were, first off, take a page from Houston's playbook. They had a great 2023 year. Then they kind of regressed in 2024. It happens. It doesn't make sense, right? You're like, we're only getting better as we get, more developed and these guys get more experience. This young core comes out for another year, but the NFL, crazy things happen. Mailbag is next, so start peppering your questions in the chat with the hashtag Broncos or Super Chat. We got one Super Chat so far today from Ronald Putnam. So shout out to you, Ron. If you want to get on screen for a shout out, Super Chat, and Moose will throw it on for everyone watching to see.
Remember, get that hashtag Broncos in there.
Yep. Jeremy, no, the top RB almost never works out in the draft. All right, Jeremy. Let's talk about that. I don't think you're necessarily wrong for feeling that way. Ready? I've got actually coincidentally in front of me the last 10 running backs that were taken first in the draft. Here we go.
Lay him on me.
Last year, Jonathan Brooks, round 2. That's kind of like an anomaly. You don't see round 2 be the first time a running back's taken too often.
I'd agree with that.
Okay. 2023, Bijan. Pretty good.
Yeah, really good.
Pretty good. 2022, another second-round pick, Breece Hall.
Also really good.
Really good. Unfortunately, an ACL injury early on, but good player. 2021, Najee Harris. I'll give you that one. That's kind of example of that's a first-round pick that would not be a first-round pick if they did a redraft. Same goes for 2020, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He was pick 32, so not quite in the same tier as what they view a first-round pick like Ashton Jeanty. 2019, Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, I'll say he's pretty good.
2018, Saquon Barkley.
Nah, he sucks.
Yeah. 2017, Leonard Fournette. He came right before Christian McCaffrey. So both were top 10. They got the wrong one. In Jacksonville's defense, Fournette was nasty at LSU.
He was so bad.
He was so fun to watch.
He was so good.
2016, Zeke. Like, before he got washed, he gave Dallas 6-7 great years.
Well, he was getting 300-plus touches every single year in Dallas. So the wear and tear on Zeke was just too great.
And then 2015 is Todd Gurley. I think he just got unlucky with the knee injury.
Yeah, I mean, one of the greatest single seasons in 2017 or 2018, where he had like over
17.
He had almost 2,000 yards.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
So, hey, I don't think you're completely off base there. I will say the guys that go like top 15 that we just talked about, Barkley, Zeke, Gurley. What pick was Gurley? Those guys were pretty close to being, surefire things. The late round 1, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, round 2 guys, point taken. But we're not talking about those guys. Okay, are we ready? Let's do a mailbag. Here we go. Mark, getting a question in. Love to see it. Thank you, Mark. Here we go. It is mailbag time here on the Broncos Breakdown. I'm answering questions that came in during our live show, which airs every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Mountain Time. So let's start off with our first question on today's mailbag, coming in from Pineapple. Do you think Sean Payton is interested in getting a dual running back system like Reggie Bush and Deuce McAllister? Pineapple, very good question. If you go off of Sean Payton's comments at the end of last year, he said, yeah, we're probably not going to be looking for a bell cow back. I'm paraphrasing, more like a committee backfield, right? So that's what he's always done in New Orleans. He had that with these two players like you mentioned. He had it with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. Now, towards the end of Ingram's time, Kamara was just too good to not have on the field more often. So Payton has found success in those dual system running backs. But if Ashton Jeanty or Omarion Hampton just catches attention to the point of, this is a guy that I'm head over heels in love with and is going to transcend my offense and be the last missing puzzle piece, I don't expect him to just put him on the sideline, because in New Orleans, he did that in 2006. You know what I mean? So I think there's a good chance of that happening, but I think it's just going to be very dependent on who they get in the draft. And once I have that name, Pineapple, I'll have a much better answer for you. I'm just existing. What about a trade up for Tyler Warren? No, and the reason being is you don't often see trade ups for tight ends. If you're giving up draft capital, you got to kind of ask yourself, hey, what's more valuable? Say Tyler Warren at 10, right? Or Omarion Hampton at 20 and next year's 25th overall pick. For a certain position, the answer might be getting up to 10. For tight end, man, you do not see teams trade up very often for tight ends. It's just about the impact they can have on a game that warrants them being worth the draft pick or 2 or 3 draft picks. So I don't expect Denver to move up for Warren, especially with the Engram signing. I think it just gives them the flexibility to go, we don't have to make this trade up for a guy like Warren because we have something in Engram to hold us over for the next year or two. And at that point, we can find our next tight end in the future without giving up multiple draft picks for one player. Danny, if Denver delivers a top 3 defense next year, does Vance Joseph get a head coaching job in 2026? I'm going to go with unlikely for a few reasons. One, in the NFL, it's not easy to get second chances. It's not the NBA. Like, the NBA loves retreads of coaches. NFL does not operate the same way. If you are going to get a second chance, 2 things have to be, checked. One, more than likely have to be an offensive guy. Every once in a while, you get a Dan Quinn who got a second chance, but look how long it took him in Dallas before he eventually took that second chance. For Vance Joseph, I don't think they're going to look at 2 good years of work and say, that's enough. I've seen everything I want to see. Let's bring him back into head coaching. I think it's going to take a little bit longer than that. So I would say even with a good year in 2025, he's still going to be the DC in 2026. It could be a great year. It's just not common for second chances, and especially for defensive coaches. Aiden, go back to the last one for a moment. Remember Raheem Morris? He was the Buccaneers head coach. You saw how long it took him to get a second chance to be the Falcons head coach? Well over a decade. Okay. Sorry, Danny. Sorry. Aiden, back to you. Yes. The 6th round, Aiden. I do not have strong opinions on 6th round draft picks. I feel like I would be BSing you a little bit if I was like, this would be a disaster of a pick. So, sure, why not? Manny G. Do you think Coach would trade out of the 1st round to get more picks if there is no one there that he likes/wants? Sean Payton, fun fact, has never traded back in the 1st round of the NFL draft throughout his time in New Orleans. I don't think anyone's going to call up for pick 20. This is a draft class that is a little bit light on 1st round grades. Most draft classes have around 20, maybe like 17 to 22. This has more like, depending on who you ask, 13 to 16. So why would a team give up multiple draft picks to get up to 20 and get a round 2 graded player when they could have just taken an extra guy in round 2 along with their original 1st round pick? So I don't think Denver's finding anyone looking to trade up with them. $5 super chat coming in from Bulwark all the way in Australia. I don't see a negative to trading up, but with that being said, there are plenty of draft prospects for Denver. I think our first will be at 23 to 27 in 2026. Bulwark raises a great point, which he's building off of a video I put out already on the channel about Denver trading up for Ashton Jeanty. Go watch that for more context. In that trade idea, could you throw the trade idea really quick, Moose, please? In that trade idea with the Panthers, where Denver goes from 20 to 8, it included a future 1st round draft pick. I challenge everyone, whenever we talk about giving up future 1st round draft picks, to think, where is that going to be in round 1? When the Bears made the deal with Carolina for Bryce Young, I think a big part of the motivating factor was, I think the Panthers might stink. And that 1st round pick next year could be early. It wasn't early. It was just 1st overall, and it got them Caleb Williams. So, if you're Denver, you got to factor in, okay, sure, future 1st sounds like a lot, but if we are going to be better than last year, the floor is 20. And we'd rather have the 20th and the 25th overall pick, as Bulwark puts it, or the 8th, which is what I suggested with the Panthers trade. I'd rather have the 8th. So, to round out your question here, there are plenty of draft prospects for Denver. Yeah, if they can't make a move up, it takes 2 to trade. Panthers could easily go, no thanks, hang up. Same for every other team that Denver calls. Or the Raiders just take Jeanty at 6, and they never get the chance to move up anyway. So, I'm on board with the trade up, but certain things need to fall in place for it to happen. Corey. At what pick do you think Jeanty would have to fall in order for Payton to trade up? Can we look at the NFL draft order? Corey, this is a very good question. Let's go through just 1 through 16, because I'd be a little surprised if he was there at 17, at which point it'd be a no-brainer with the Bengals, I think, to trade up. So reviewing the 1 through 8 draft order here, coming up in less than 2 weeks at this point right now, Jeanty is not going to go 1 through 4. Jacksonville, I don't think so. Maybe it's the Jags. They're unpredictable at times, but I don't believe so. They've been, by they, I mean every single person with a mock draft simulator has been sending Jeanty to the Raiders. At this point, it's kind of reminded me of last year when every single mock draft, and I mean every single one, had Atlanta taking Dallas Turner. That didn't happen. It's almost like there's too much smoke around Jeanty to the Raiders. So if Jeanty were to fall past the Raiders because they feel that they should build up their offensive line in round 1 with Will Campbell or Armand Membu, and then go with Caleb Johnson or one of the Ohio State backs in day 2, that could be a better path for them moving forward to repair that run game. So if Jeanty gets past the Raiders at 6, I think Payton would try and start making calls with the Jets at 7. 7, 8. 9, his old team, New Orleans. If Shedeur Sanders is taken at that point, I could see the Saints being open to trading back. But also, remember earlier I said, fun fact, Sean Payton has never traded back in round 1. That's also true for Saints GM Mickey Loomis. So someone would have to end their drought right there. Ramon Rivera, what do you think Marvin Mims' stat line looks like next year? Let me answer this question, and we'll tell everyone about our sponsor today, Moose. Marvin Mims, I don't remember his stats last year. I think he had like 600 yards and 5 touchdowns. Marvin Mims last year, 503 yards and 6 touchdowns. I'm going to say Marvin Mims this upcoming year is 750 yards and 7 touchdowns. A good, and also maybe more importantly, from 39 receptions to like 55. I think he just sees more targets, more volume, more yards, and touchdowns can be a bit fluky, right? Sometimes you get pushed out of bounds at the 1-yard line. Calvin Johnson fantasy owners know that all too well. So I won't like stake my flag in the ground when it comes to touchdowns for a player, but receptions, I'm going to say 50 to 55. Yards, I'm going to say a number that starts with the 7. Before we look at the other questions on today's mailbag, quick shout out to our friends over at Game Time. Game Time makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Last-minute deals over at Game Time, you can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Plus, there's Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So if you want to go to a Rockies game as the weather hopefully warms up soon, or a Nuggets game, or an Avs game, including a playoff game, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Moving on to our next question, coming in from Pineapple via Super Chat. I love our family. Oh, appreciate that, Pineapple. More of a statement than a question, but I love you too. Thank you so much for tuning in. Moving on to our next one from Desire Best. Trade up for Warren or Jeanty. If not, take best player available. Could take Caleb Johnson, Travion Henderson, or Quinshon Judkins in round 2. I would trade up for Jeanty. The thing about best player available is it always sounds good in theory, and I'm a proponent of it. If I said best player available at 20 was a defensive end, would you do that then? Let me ask you this. Would you rather take Omarion Hampton or Michael Williams, defensive end from Georgia? I think you'd probably say Hampton. But if you're going best player available, it could be Gray Zabel, the offensive lineman from North Dakota. It could be, well, no, but you could find best player available at spots you really don't need help at. So, like, how about this one? Safety, Nicky Minwari or Malachi Starks. Would you take one of those two guys over a running back or Colston Loveland or a receiver? Probably not, is my guess. All right, Desire Best, thank you so much for your question. Moving on to our next one here. Phoenix. I love Ted McMillan because next year he could be our wide receiver 1 if we don't extend Sutton, and he is amazing in the slot. I do agree with the train of thought of, hey, Sutton's going into the final year of his contract. I personally like to look at drafts, not about replacing that year's vacancies, but next year's vacancies. Because if you take a receiver, let's say you have a, like this year, for example, or backtrack. Let's say you have a huge need for wide receiver, okay? Take the receiver, and you're hoping and banking that player as a rookie can be an immediate contributor. And if they don't, I feel like the pressure starts to build up and expectations are disappointed, okay? Whereas if you go into the approach where Phoenix has laid out, which is you take McMillan this year so that next year he can replace Sutton. That's a good way of thinking, of replacing guys in the future, not this year. That way you're never banking on a rookie to have a huge role in year one. Now, despite everything I just said, I just disagree with you about the profile for McMillan. Like, I don't think he's going to be amazing, and he's not my number one receiver in this class. I'd rather have Matthew Golden, but overall, this receiver class is a little disappointing in my eyes. Mark Baker. DJ Jones is 30 years old. We need a replacement before we repeat our right tackle problem at nose tackle. What would it take to trade up for Kenneth Grant? One, I do love the reference to the right tackle position. Like, never again will they just have a different week one. It's kind of like a base, like the Rockies, just like constant turnover at that position every single year. Week one starting lineup at right tackle. But McGlinchey offers some long-term consistency. But as for replacing him, they just gave him a 3-year contract. So I don't think it's that much of a pressing need. I did not see eye to eye on the 3-year deal for a 30-year-old who was good last year, but like, I don't know if he was 3-year, $35 million good. As for trading up for Kenneth Grant, I don't think you should trade up for him. I think the inconsistency on tape is going to ding him a little bit. Plus, when you play at 330 pounds like he does, there are teams that are going to be concerned about your durability to play a decent amount of snaps. And in round one, you're looking for someone who can be on the field, not a rotational guy. Now, defensive lineman's always going to have some level of a rotation, but if you're going after like a pass rusher, right? Well, if this is a pass rusher who's only good in certain circumstances, like third and long and things like that, then for most of the game, they're not valuable to you. So that's probably not worth a first-round pick. And I wonder with Grant if teams are going to look at that weight and be concerned with, hey, is this a guy that can play 50 to 60% of snaps? Because if he's only going to be a 35 to 40% guy, that's not going to warrant a first-round pick. We need more snaps from him to use a high draft pick on him. So I don't think you'd have to trade up for him at all anyway. All right, that's going to do it for us on today's show. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you have not yet, do me and yourself a big favor. Scroll on down and click that sub button. Okay. That's going to do it for us on today's live show. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We had plenty to discuss, so awesome to see the same names and faces in the chat for, an hour plus here during our live today. I'll let you guys get on with the rest of your Tuesdays, and I'll see everyone later.